Welcome to the Education Spotlight with Mike O'Sullivan, CEO of One South Coast Chamber. Presented by BayCoast Bank, providing exceptional service and solutions for our community. And One South Coast Chamber, right here on FM 95.9, AM 1480 WSAR.
Hi, I'm Mike O'Sullivan, CEO of One South Coast Chamber, and I'm happy to be here today on the Education Spotlight, sponsored by BayCoast Bank, by Paul Burke. Paul is a vice president at BayCoast Insurance, very well known in the Fall River area. You've been involved in so many different things from in Fall River and Swansea and just all around the region. So Paul, thank you for coming, and it's great to have you here today.
My pleasure, Mike. It's good to see you. You're
good.
Doing a great job at the chamber, by the way.
Thank you very much. We're having a lot of fun, and well, as you know, we've talked a lot about this, but you in the background, you helped me a lot understand, how to be able to get the two chambers to merge, Fall River and New Bedford, because you went through it. You went through it in 2006, 2007, somewhere around then, and of course it didn't pass. But I like to say I learned from you because I listened to you and what you learned in that process.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. I think we all understood the need for regionalism, especially on a legislative level.
Yeah,
trying to get trains into the Fall River area. So we were working hard to do that. Unfortunately, it didn't happen in the year I was chair and leading up to the year of 2007 when I was chair. But it's happened, and you guys made that happen. And I think that's, credit to your hard work.
Well, thank you. But I really appreciate that. And Rick Kidder appreciates that from Spain now. But
yeah. Lucky him.
Yeah, very lucky, Rick. But it really, I have this theory and philosophy that, you can only get to where you're going if you actually listen and pay attention to the people that came before you, and you need to do that. And so, like the work that all you guys did in that time frame, it may not have pushed things over the hump then,
right? But
listening and reading and then going back and asking the people, yourself included, but others, like, it makes sense, that there'd be one regional chamber. But why didn't it happen? How did we get there? And but so I thank you for that, because
my pleasure.
You guys were you were really big help, and sometimes if that didn't happen in 06 and 07, we might not have been able to make it happen in 19 and 20.
That's possible.
There's things, a lot of those things are a big step. So it's a great education process for us. And of course, over the years, with your activity with the chamber and your activity with the community, you've always been very active in the education world.
Oh, yeah, very active in the education world. And actually, it started back when I was on the board at the Battleship with Nick Christ. And we were both, if anybody knows Nick, how passionate he is about education, and, what some of the struggles were for the Fall River area in education. And we were trying to work on it at the chamber, on the other boards I was with, and Nick was a big part of that. And we both kind of agreed, we saw eye to eye on some of the ways to try and help. And after I did my tour as chamber chair, I got contacted by Kristen Pavo, who was trying to start a charter school, now Argosy Charter School. And she said to me, she goes, Nick Chris told me to call you. So, it's kind of funny how things now kind of turn, and now I'm working for BayCoast Insurance and Nick Christ.
Yeah, well, Nick is at least from the private sector side of the world in our region along the South Coast. Nick is one of the biggest supporters of education and the need for the need to improve the education and the education system. And he's always talked to me about and pushed the need to move the needle. And
Right.
and it's got to be a measurable thing. So your activity in Argosy, and actually we recently had Kristen on
Yep.
the Education Spotlight, but Kristen and Holly Raposo and the new athletic director Jonathan Murray. I hope I got his name right.
Okay,
But
yep.
we had them on. It was a lot of fun. But you've really moved the needle. I mean, when you look at what Argosy Collegiate Charter School's done, you've helped really move
It's
that
amazing
needle.
to have, so many students get accepted into colleges, many with full boat scholarships, and both locally and we have 2 graduates at Harvard. I mean,
Yeah, which is
in
fantastic.
4 years is amazing,
Right.
absolutely amazing. So it was worth all the hard work we put in.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when I listen to Kristen and Holly in particular, because whenever I've had Kristen on the show, Holly has come as well, and I love talking to both of them. But the work and the effort and the love for what they're doing that they have is just tells you that
It's amazing.
Argosy would be a great place for students.
It is.
It really would be a great place for students. We're kind of going way off script, but
A little bit.
but what? There's just so much great stuff that's happening in the community. But so tell me about your role at BayCoast Insurance, and because that's new for you. Because I think the last time you and I may have talked at all, you were still on your own, and it was
Yeah.
a different world.
So actually, 2 years ago, this week and next week was when we
2 years already.
joined. Yeah, 2 years already with BayCoast Insurance. I'm a VP down on the Wilbur Avenue office. We have 7 offices throughout the communities: Tiverton, Fairhaven, Swansea, Somerset, obviously Fall River, and Seekonk. So, but it goes back to when Citizens Union, now BayCoast, started in the insurance business. I had talked to Nick about kind of joining forces then, and it wasn't right timing for me. But in the last few years, especially during COVID, it made sense to start looking. I'm 70.
Are you really?
Yeah, and so I wasn't planning on working until 70. I didn't think I'd make it to 70. Never mind work till 70. But anyway, so I had worked with Nick on numerous things throughout the community. And when my partner, Chris Hadley, and I decided to go in that direction, BayCoast Insurance was obviously one of our first choices. And we decided to go with them not because of the money, but because of how they treat their employees. And when we had discussions with them, we wanted all of our employees to be part of their program. And a lot of other offers that we got, you merge with somebody, they cut back on staff or
Right.
whatever. And we did not want that. So when Nick says, well, they'll all be coming along, then that was enough for me to say, I've known this guy forever, worked with him. He's as honest as the day is long, runs a great organization. Why wouldn't we? So that's how we ended up there. And it's been great.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it, because they're just, and our experience with BayCoast has always been great. And to have a bank like that has, and I guess it's not just a bank because they have insurance, but,
Right.
out of habit we call it a bank. But, for an organization like that to just to have the culture that they have, and we coming from the chamber side, we see it so much. Like when we do our Chowder Fest,
Yep.
I couldn't even tell you the number of volunteers that we get from BayCoast, but it's going to be close to 30 that are there, that are helping us. They're counting all the money on the half hour when it's really busy, on the hour when it's a little slower, and they are just but they're all over the place. Whatever we need, they're there and they're helping, and it's nice to work with a group of folks from one organization that, like, they look like they're having fun when they're doing it. And
Good group of people.
It is.
I mean, and while those 30 are working with you, there's hundreds out in the community doing other things.
Exactly.
So
exactly. I mean, we, historically, and Patrick Long will back me up on this, I'm sure. But historically, we don't necessarily do a membership drive every year, but we might do one like every 18 months. And with COVID, we've kind of gotten off track, but we're going to do one in 2025. But I can speak for Patrick in that they have done such a great job. Like, they don't, because commercial insurance people, they can sell in it like nobody's business. They're great at it, and somehow, some way, there's a connection between, can I sell a membership to my local chamber, or can I sell insurance? If you can do one, you can do the other. Or at least that's the way it looks to me, because Patrick will put people out there, and he'll say, how many people do you need? We'll say, well, could you give us 10 people? Well, like, those 10 people, they won't sit in the room and make phone calls, but by the time we actually start the membership drive, BayCoast will have bought us like 20 or 30 new members.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, so like we see it from, all the work like you do, and I know, and like, you still volunteer for Swansea Ambulance Corps, right?
Yep. I work Friday night shift, tomorrow night.
God bless you. But there's like, so like, you do that, and others do things, and like, I know there's folks doing, Little League, and doing, all sorts of coaching and volunteers. It just, the culture's fantastic.
It's amazing.
Yeah, the culture's fantastic.
And the culture at the chamber is too. When I first started in business, when I bought my business in '86, I started in the insurance business in 1977, when you couldn't find a job. Interest rates were 15-16%, and it was just, the economy was a mess, and we had gas lines and everything. And I started in the business then, and Joe Menard said to me, you need to join the chamber and get on their legislative affairs committee, because you'll meet people, and it will help you. And so, as much as we bring to the chamber brings to the businesses.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Joan was right.
She was.
I think 30 years later, Joan was right.
Yep.
Paul, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Education Spotlight with Mike O'Sullivan, CEO of One South Coast Chamber. Presented by BayCoast Bank, providing exceptional service and solutions for our community. And One South Coast Chamber.
Hi, I'm Mike O'Sullivan, CEO of One South Coast Chamber, and I'm joined today on the Education Spotlight by Paul Burke, the Vice President of BayCoast Insurance, and we're having a great conversation talking about all things BayCoast Insurance and all Paul's community service over the years along the South Coast, and especially your work with the Chamber and how the Chamber's affected your business over the years. It's great to have you here, Paul.
Thanks, Mike.
It really is. And as we said, you've got a background with education, and you may not have been a teacher, but you certainly, were you a teacher?
Yes, I was.
Wow.
I taught insurance for 35 years for the Mass Insurance Agents Association.
Oh, wow. See, you live and learn.
See?
You live and learn. I didn't know that. But I'm not, you know what? That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Knowing you, it does not surprise me that you taught insurance like that because that's important and is given back to the community. So I'm glad to hear that. But again, I'm not particularly surprised with all the stuff that you do in giving back. But, so you've been with BayCoast. Paul, it seems to me like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But you've been with BayCoast now for 2 years. And so tell me a little bit more about BayCoast Insurance. And, I think you said you have 7 offices?
Yep.
Wow.
Throughout the communities. 2 in Fall River, Tiverton, Seekonk, Swansea, 2 offices in Swansea, 560 Wilbur Avenue, and the main office on Route 118, Swansea Mall Drive, and I think Seekonk and Fairhaven. So anyone who's looking to talk to an independent agent can hit any one of those locations. I think it's important people understand the difference between an insurance company and an independent agent. Independent agents represent many different companies. But we ultimately represent our clients. Our job is to make sure they're insured properly and that we put them with a company that best fits their needs. Because like individuals, companies have a certain thing that they want to do and how they do it. And it's our job to match the two together. And I think we do a great job at it.
It sounds good. I mean, BayCoast they've been very successful, and as we were saying before the last break, my experience with BayCoast, especially the commercial folks, they know how to sell and service people, and they're really good. And of course, service is an important part of that. So, can you talk a little bit about the excellent service and the reputation with that? I mean, I could say, oh, it's great service, but how do you you've been doing insurance for a very long time.
Almost 50 years.
Wow.
So, I always look, you treat people the way you want to be treated. And we've done that with our clients from the start, and BayCoast does it the same way. Like any business, you got to listen first, find out what their needs are, and then you kind of match them together that fits their needs. And it's not just selling the insurance. It's when they have a claim too,
right,
where they have a lot of the questions and they don't know what to do, and they're going to call us and they're going to ask for advice and how do I handle this, and I always tell my clients, you're not buying insurance for the little fender bender. You're buying insurance for the really bad car accident or the fire loss, and that's when you really know what kind of service you're getting, because you need that. That's when they need the help the most.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's, I mean, when you're getting those really rough claims, those are tough, because that means somebody was hurt. Somebody was hurt.
I mean, for my years in the fire department, it wouldn't be unusual to be at an accident scene and handle the claim later on, or be at a fire scene and start handling the claim right while you're there. So I think that's what made the insurance world worth it to me, when you knew you could help your clients when they needed it the most. I've always found that to be important, and so does BayCoast.
And I'm sure everybody appreciates that. So, over the last few years, we've had so many devastating events, like extreme weather events, the hurricanes down south, and people wonder, like, what does their homeowners cover and doesn't cover normally? I know it's policy specific, but
there's a lot behind the scenes for homeowners insurance companies and what they provide and what they don't provide. But the homeowners policy for the most part, it's a standard policy that our company partners use. It's not always the same policy that some of the direct writers use, like Allstate, Progressive, although Progressive sells insurance through agencies and on their own. But if you look online at a lot of these direct writers, Progressive, not Progressive, I'm sorry, but Geico, some of those, they're not the same policy as what we sell. They're usually kind of a little bit less coverage. And I try and equate it like, okay, you can buy, a Ford Escort, or you can buy...
You're dating yourself by...
Yeah, because they don't make those anymore. That's why I use that, so nobody can yell at me. But or a more luxury car, or something that fills your needs.
Right.
And when you buy insurance online, you're usually not getting what you need, and you won't know it until it's too late. We try and navigate that for people. So the homeowner's policy obviously covers fire and vandalism and windstorm and hurricane. Okay, that it covers all those, but it does not cover flood or earth movement, including earthquake. You can buy flood separately through FEMA, right? Mm-hmm. And we do sell flood. You can buy earthquake coverage. A lot of companies will add it as an endorsement. And you get to decide whether you need it or not. I mean, believe it or not, we had an earthquake here in Swansea years ago. And I actually had a claim and my insured was covered with earthquake. They were very pleased because they had the coverage they needed. So sometimes, you think, well, we're not California, so we don't have to worry about earthquakes. But you do. So, and now a lot of people are talking hurricanes. So it does cover those things. Our policies do anyway.
Well, I know. I'm trying to think now. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was 4 or 5 years ago in this region we had. I think like over the course of like 2 or 3 weekends, we had 2 what people perceive as small earthquakes.
Yep.
But it shifted. It shifted our, it did something to our water in the ground outside the house that we in this region there's a lot of iron in the water.
Right.
And we didn't have we had enough of a water system in the house that we didn't have any iron problems.
Right.
But after that,
we did. Yeah.
And
well, that's a good point. A lot of policies will provide sewer overflow or sump pump backup.
Yeah.
For ground, if groundwater comes into your basement, you lose your electricity. Your sump pump can't work. A lot of our policies provide that. Direct writers don't usually. So that's a little thing, but and in most people's eyes, insurance companies charge too much and never pay for anything, right? I mean, that's
I've heard that.
Yes, and that is a perception. The funny part is I never get complaints from someone who's had a major fire loss or a major accident. I never get complaints after they've been taken care of. So it goes back to we need to educate the people on what they're buying, and you can't get educated if you're just buying online. If you really want to have that discussion about what your needs are and what kind of insurance you need to buy, you need to talk to an independent agent, and that's what we are, and we do a good job of explaining that to you.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are very grateful over the years for you and for some of their other insurance agents. So, Paul, we're going to take another break, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Education Spotlight with Mike O'Sullivan, CEO of One South Coast Chamber. Presented by BayCoast Bank, providing exceptional service and solutions for our community. And One South Coast Chamber.
Hi, I'm Mike O'Sullivan, CEO of One South Coast Chamber, and we are joined today on the Education Spotlight by Paul Burke, Vice President of BayCoast Insurance. Paul, it's always great to see you. We're having a great conversation about lots of things, and I'm learning a lot about insurance that maybe I didn't know or maybe I didn't want to know. But thank you for being here. It's always great to have you here.
Good to be here, Mike.
So we were just talking before the break. We were talking about some of the devastations, and in particular some of the hurricane stuff. What have you seen with the hurricanes and the effects that those have? Of course, we have these horrible. We don't necessarily get the hurricanes. We get the horrible nor'easters.
Right. And actually, when we were previously talking about what kind of coverages you provide, one of the things that most people don't realize is the homeowners policy covers broken pipes. And we see a lot of broken pipes when we have the nor'easters, the freeze-ups from 2015, and we've had a couple of those brutal weekends where the temperature drops below zero with high winds, and then we go into work and people are calling up because their pipes burst that are in the walls, and that's all covered. It's important to know that and deal with it as quickly as possible, because any kind of water damage is a problem. But the hurricane issue, it's having a major effect on us here with our prices. I think everybody understands that. But it also has changed with the companies putting a wind deductible on the policies. And a lot of them are 1 or 2% of the dwelling limit. So if you have a $500,000 homeowners policy with a 1% deductible, it's $5,000.
Right.
And some of them are as high as 5%. And a lot of people don't realize that's on their policy. But they are. And I bet I can tell you that, depending on where you are to the water, a lot of companies will measure you from the water. You will have a hurricane deductible if you're within a mile of the water or 2 miles of the water, depending on the company. So you probably have one of those. And if you didn't have it before, they've been adding them on. But the insurance companies don't have a whole lot of choice, because I don't think a lot of people understand insurance companies buy insurance for themselves.
Right.
They buy reinsurance, and it's called treaty insurance. But they say, okay, we have this book of business in this area, and the reinsurance carriers go, yeah, that's too close to the water. This is going to be the price for that coverage, and they either have to raise the rates or get out of the area. And I think California and Florida are really seeing where insurance companies are just leaving the area, and they won't provide them any kind of coverage. We haven't had that problem so far, and I'm hoping that we never do. But if we get hit by a hurricane or there's more of them, we may see companies deciding, you're too close to the water, we don't want that exposure.
And of course, the South Coast region, we're right on the water.
We're right on the water.
So many of our communities, we at One South Coast Chamber, we serve 19 communities, and I've never actually thought about exactly how many of those 19 are right on the water, but there's not many that are not.
Yeah, it's a lot of coastline.
Yeah, it's
and they look at Cape Cod and go, oh my God, that's right out in the middle of the ocean, the way they look at it. Because most of your reinsurers, you got Lloyd's Reinsurance, you have Gen Re, a lot of them, they're not from around here. And our insurance carriers have to go out and buy the reinsurance. So they'll go to London or they'll go to Bermuda to talk to those people that are selling it. And, there's not a lot of reinsurance companies out there, but they provide the reinsurance for the whole world.
It's a lot more complicated than you think it is, especially behind the scenes. I mean, I know when we bought our home, when we came back to this region, when we bought our home, we had never had to have a wind deductible. Of course, we were coming from upstate New York.
Right.
We had lived in East Greenwich. We had moved to upstate New York, and then we came back over here. And I I remember when I got the call from the agent saying, well, your insurance is more because you have to have this wind deductible.
Right.
Because we live in Tiverton, and we live in Tiverton that's near the water.
Right.
We're not on the water. We're not.
And it's Rhode Island.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each state has their little quirks too.
Yep.
And that's the other thing we try and, as an independent agent, try and educate our insureds. Homeowners coverage and pricing is different in Rhode Island than it is in Mass.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, how can that be? But it is.
It is, that's for sure.
So, and the other thing with hurricanes and losses and floods, your auto insurance. Every time you see a picture on the news of a car flooded in the street or in a parking lot, that's a total loss.
Yeah.
And that affects all of our auto rates because it's covered under comprehensive.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting when people start seeing it that way. And it's like, oh yeah, okay. Because if you lose your car, you need to replace it, right? And the only way most people can do it is if they have it insured.
Exactly. If you don't, especially if it's a newer car, even if you buy a used car, but it's still a newer used car.
Right.
If you got to replace it and you don't have the coverage.
One of the interesting things, and we've seen it, is we just had cannabis legalized in Massachusetts. Because it was illegal, there was nobody out there providing insurance
Right.
for that type of business. Sales, growing institutions, and BayCoast Insurance stepped to the plate, and BayCoast Bank stepped to the plate to provide banking services.
Right.
But it's hard for a bank to deal with somebody. How do you insure a building that nobody wants because it's got cannabis in it? And we provide that kind of coverage too. So it's new. There wasn't a lot out there. There was a lot to learn in the business, and we went out and did it. And and as that industry grows, we'll be a leader in providing insurance for those kinds of businesses.
And that's important because like cannabis is an interesting one because it was legalized through the ballot initiatives originally, and then you've got all these processes, but people are investing their life savings in trying to be able to produce it.
Yeah.
But like in the beginning, if you made money, you couldn't even put the money in the bank in the beginning.
It was all cash. Nobody would take it.
Right. And like whoever heard of a bank not wanting to take cash?
Right.
But because of the difference between state and federal laws, there was some concerns. And BayCoast, I remember BayCoast stepped up early on the banking side of it. It sounds like doing the same thing on the insurance side of it as well.
Absolutely.
Because there's millions of dollars invested
amazing.
in those businesses. I mean, when you look at them, and there's so many of them around, but you're just like, never mind the cost of just the actual cannabis and growing it, but like if you look at Aura, which is up in it's right next to BayCoast Bank.
Yep.
At the entrance on Airport Road in the Fall River Industrial Park. I don't know how much money that building cost to build, but it had to be a ton of money,
right?
Because it's a very large. It looks like a beautiful building, but it's a large building too. So, and that's in that industry. I hadn't I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So it's part of you got to be in the process. You got to know what the needs are of your community, and you have to be able to provide the coverages for everybody, because that's certainly a different business than a manufacturer in the industrial park. I mean, really, you think about it. Yeah, we've been doing that for the last few years and doing a great job.
And do you offer a free homeowners policy review too?
Absolutely.
If somebody wants to check it out.
Come in, sit down, talk with, our customer service reps, the people that work in our offices are highly educated, super nice people, and they'll answer your questions. And we tend to get people that they're coming in because their premium's too high, or they just they don't understand insurance, and our job is to educate them. And that's what we try and do every day, is help people, whether it be buying insurance, changing a car, maybe they're moving and, selling a house, buying a new house. We help them through those processes every day. And, I work with my clients all the time. My phone's ringing, all day long. And that's the fun part. If you ever talk to someone that's young, that's coming out of college, they never say, I want to go in the insurance business. And it's too bad because, and I didn't either but I needed a job. I couldn't pay my rent. So when somebody offered me a job in insurance, I took it. And I found that, the best part of it is helping people when they need help. But you make wonderful friends, and the people that are in this business are just outstanding, both on the company side and the agency side. I've got a lot of lifelong friends that I worked with on the company side that I can't say how much they mean to me.
That's nice to hear. Very nice to hear. So, Paul, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Education Spotlight with Mike O'Sullivan, CEO of One South Coast Chamber. Presented by BayCoast Bank, providing exceptional service and solutions for our community. And One South Coast Chamber.
Hi, I'm Mike O'Sullivan, CEO of One South Coast Chamber, and I'm joined here today on the Education Spotlight by Paul Burke, Vice President of BayCoast Insurance. And we're really having a great conversation. It's kind of going all over the map a little bit here, but that's because you're involved in so many different things. And then, of course, as we're talking about insurance and educating people, in buying insurance and how to use it and looking out for the important points, kind of goes all around the map. But just as we went to break, we were talking, and I said to you, I want to ask you about this one particular point about insurance. A lot of people in the last 4 or 5 years, especially through COVID, they've made renovations to their homes. They're not buying new homes. It's just a kind of a function of the way the real estate market has been. But can you tell me, are you seeing those people? Are they still adequately covered, or do they need to make changes to their policies, or what are your thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah. We try and make sure all of our insureds are insured adequately, but so many people, that come and see us, they don't realize how much the price to rebuild a home is nowadays. The cost of materials is just way higher than it was in 2016, 17, 18. And the homeowner's policy, is designed to replace what you have. Well, if it costs $200,000 more to replace your house than it did 5 years ago, you need to be aware of that, and you need to talk to your agent and make sure that you are insured adequately, because the homeowner's insurance policy says if you're not insured to 80%, then there's a penalty built into any claim. So you need to be at 80% of replacement cost. And we do that on a regular basis to make sure that our insureds know. But then the hard part is, okay, we need to get you to 80%. The premium obviously goes up. Are there ways to save you money through credits, for alarm systems, higher deductibles? Some people might be able to afford a little bit higher deductible. It saves on the premium. And we go through all of that with our insureds all the time. And, that's half of our day is just answering questions and people calling up and saying, how can you save me money? And, our advice is, coverage, then price. We make sure you have the right coverage, and then we try and price it to something you can afford.
It's another reason to go back and look at having that free, comprehensive, complimentary, the homeowner's policy review, just to make sure, because you never know.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really never know. So, I mean, we've got it sort of a script. It started out as a script, but we've talked about so many different things, like the different lines. I mean, you've talked about auto, homeowners,
flood and earthquake. Yeah.
Flood and earthquake. How about things like life and health, and even these are popular today. I don't have a pet, but what about pet and
yeah, we do provide
insurance?
pet coverage for people, and life and health obviously is a big deal. We have some super people in our life and health department that you can talk to, and it's all comprehensive as to what every individual needs. Some people don't need life insurance, but probably 99% of the people do, and they want to make sure they take care of their families. And if you live in a condo, we provide condo insurance, and that's a different type of policy. So they sound like a homeowner's policy, but they're not. They're different, and you need to know those differences. So that's what we provide it all, and all you have to do is give us a call or stop by, and we'd be happy to answer any of your individual questions.
Well, you mentioned quickly life insurance, and as we age, you concern yourself with these things, but the time to buy life insurance is when you're young.
Yeah.
And I really don't know. I don't think I know anybody that doesn't need life insurance. I just don't. I mean,
I don't.
I've yet to see that,
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, when I was in college and when I first got out of college, I remember my father, who, when I was he passed away when I was 22.
Right.
He passed away young. He was 58. But one of the things that I remember him telling me was, you need to get life insurance early.
Right.
You really, really need to get life insurance early. And then, of course, I didn't, because who listens to their father when you're 22?
Nobody.
But 2 years later, when I was getting married, and I said, okay, now we really need to get life insurance.
Right.
And even though we, at that moment, we didn't have children or anything, but so we really need to get life insurance. And as as you get older, you realize that, wait a minute, like my kids learned. I had some significant health issues that are genetic, which means it affects their ability to get life insurance.
Right.
So the ones who got it when they were younger are better off than the ones who
absolutely
were like me when I was 22 and didn't listen. But it's amazing. But like you said, you haven't met anybody. I haven't met anybody that
right.
doesn't need life insurance.
It's important.
Yeah, it's very important. So anyway, we're going to take a little jump back to the I don't know if true's the right word, but to your time served. You spent a lot of time over the last quite a few years with Bristol Community College on their board of trustees and a lot of
I'm board of
activity
trustees at Argosy. I'm not on the board of trustees at Bristol.
there. Oh, okay. I thought you were.
I was on this search
committee. That's what it was.
For the new president.
Yeah.
And they picked Cedric Harris, who is a super guy. Had a chance to meet him, talk to him, and I think he's an excellent choice for our new president. Big shoes to fill. Laura Douglas was absolutely outstanding. A lot of people don't realize that I graduated Bristol. It'd be 50 years ago in May that I graduated from Bristol. Have always been a big supporter of Bristol, and we're working very closely with them on the early college education for Argosy.
Yeah.
And that has been a game changer. We have kids at Argosy that are graduating, with a year's worth of college credits, and in some cases, 2 years worth of college credits. So in my day, I didn't have too many opportunities to go to college. I had to pay for my own college education. So, just to have that opportunity for the students now is I think a real game changer for our area, for Fall River, but for all of the South Coast. And that's a huge deal for us, and I think it will make I think we're going to see that difference in 10, 20, 30 years here.
Yeah, I agree with you. As we look at free community college for all, first it was Reconnect, people that were over 25 and if they didn't have a degree, and then, in the last year,
Mass Ed, mass education.
Mass education, and now even on the, at UMass Dartmouth, they're creating programs, like Mass Deal, where
right.
I think it's if your family's income is under $75,000, you can go to UMass for free. So the work that people in higher ed that are doing around here to make sure that that folks can get an affordable higher education is just phenomenal.
It's amazing,
and it is. And there's so many folks that I've met through the chamber like you that went to Bristol, and I always think of you as a Bristol grad. I think of Matt Zenny as a Bristol grad, and and all the great things that you guys have done in the community. And Bristol is just one of those assets in our community that sometimes I feel like it doesn't get all the credit it deserves, and it gets a lot of credit, but it doesn't get all the credit it deserves.
No, it doesn't.
And the work that Laura Douglas has done there is outstanding. I mean,
it is. I mean, I was a graduate. I owned a business in Fall River for 30 years.
Yep.
And my deal is I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I hadn't been able to go to Bristol.
Yeah.
And made huge difference in my life, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So
we have two team members. Dorothy Botello.
Yep.
Our vice president of finance. She went to Bristol. God, she might have been there when you were there. Although she's a little bit younger.
She's a lot younger than me. I'm old.
She's about 6 years younger than you. And then, of course, Katie Green, who's a lot younger than you and me. And Katie Green went to Bristol and then went on and got her degree in marketing at UMass Dartmouth. So,
and I went to school with her parents.
That's right.
At Case
That's how
High
I
School.
knew she was a lot younger than you.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
But, well, we're done today. But, Paul, thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you, catching up and hearing all about BayCoast. And so thank you so much, and thank you to BayCoast Bank for sponsoring the Education Spotlight.
Michael, thank you for having me, and thanks for the great work you're doing at the Chamber.
Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate it.